I did not get a chance to breathe this entire episode. So much happened, and some of the details and the connections embedded in this episode have actually blown my mind. I should have worn a seatbelt. For one, I did not see that Wiccan reveal coming this episode at all. I mean, I knew Teen was Wiccan, they've pretty much been drop kicking us in the face with hints. But I really thought they were going to save his reveal for episode 6, or even towards the end of the series. They got me good. And the reveal itself, holy smokes. The Scarlet Witch theme, the tiara, the exact moment Agatha realizes who Teen is and hits him with the "you're so much like your mother." I will never get over this. Catherine Hahn is on another level. The way that woman is able to switch between personas, moods, and characters and embody each one so completely is just insane. I am on my knees for Catherine Hahn at all times. Give everyone a raise, an Emmy, and a spa day, especially my bae, Catherine Hahn. I ate this episode up, but I've said it once and I'll say it again. Why are these episodes 5 seconds long? I'm gonna need Jack to release the 50-hour Lord of the Rings extended edition version of this show. Rio being extra protective and defending Agatha because she knows about all of her deepest and darkest traumas. Put that in an IV drip and hook me up to it. The details in that broom exchange, the brief touching of hands, that moment where they're riding their broomsticks and Agatha looks over at Rio with intense longing and emotion that runs deeper than all of space and time, under the poetry of the moon. Those visuals altered the fabric of the universe. Those visuals gave me a reason to live. I am cherishing every single Agatha and Rio crumb we get like it is my own tiny child. Jen was ready to whoop Agatha's ass. She was first in line. Don't have to ask her twice. The retainer case snapping shut. Jen never came to play. 80s Patti LuPone served. Alice's outfit paying homage to Alex Owens from Flashdance served. It always comes back to Jennifer Beals, baby. Always. Speaking of Alice, they had better bring my girl back at some point. She did not just break a generational curse to die in the very next episode. If that's how it is, I'm gonna find Jack. And when I find Jack, I'm gonna glare at her. And she's gonna glare back at me. And then we're gonna fall in love and adopt some chickens together. And I will finally know happiness. Hi guys, welcome to a video. And in today's video, I'm just going to be giving you my thoughts and theories on episode 5 of Agatha All Along. We have a lot to discuss. Characters, connections, costumes, and clues. And it's gonna be fun, right? That's the spirit. So let's start with Agatha, since episode 5 revolved around her and her trial. It turns out we were right about the purple toadstools at the end of episode 4 hinting at this, and through the costumes and mise-en-scène we can see Agatha's trial is 80s themed, and it gives us a couple of cool visual nods to iconic films from the 80s such as Friday the 13th and Flashdance. But perhaps the most interesting 80s connection is it was the 1980s comics version of Agatha and her relationship with the Scarlet Witch. That was the inspiration for Agatha's role in WandaVision, which Agatha All Along is a spin-off from. And that's pretty damn cool. Alongside the 80s theme, both the costumes and the interior of the cabin were rich in clues about the characters and their connections to one another too. To start with, the nature theme in the cabin's interior connects back to not only Agatha's real-life home interior as seen in episodes 1 and 2, but also to Rio, whose character has an overt visual connection with nature as well. However, perhaps the most interesting clue pertaining to the nature theme is the Mama Bear and Baby Bear clock. It's no coincidence that there's a shot of the clock right after a shot of Rio, and the Mama Bear and the Baby Bear are of course reflective of Agatha and her son Nicholas, and we can see that the baby bear is holding a flower. We have seen throughout this show that there is an ongoing theme connecting plant life to a baby, which suggests a connection between Rio and Nicholas, meaning that Rio either had a hand in giving Agatha Nicholas in the first place, or that she's the baby daddy or baby mummy. Alongside this, towards the end of the trial, we can see a blanket covered in flowers right next to the Ouija board that is spelling out the name of Nicholas Scratch. This show is not subtle. All of this gives the flower that Rio produced and passed to Agatha in episode 4 a whole new meaning. The layering in this show is making me lose my mind. Another visual point of interest inside the cabin is the placement of the blood moons on the window, which evoke the image of a devil, aka Mephisto, and this confirms that Mephisto certainly shares an important connection to Agatha's story at this point. This is like the third or fourth reference to him, and it's significant that it's showing up in Agatha's trial. The most obvious connection between Agatha and Mephisto, per the comics and Jen's comment in episode 3, is that her son Nicholas may indeed be currently working for Mephisto, or that Agatha did make a deal with him at some point for some reason, most likely involving Nicholas. Costume-wise, Jen's bunny slippers are again connected to Agatha's real-life home interior, and of course to Senor Scratchy, both of which are hinted as having some connection to Nicholas Scratch. However, the precise nature of that connection is still a mystery. Something is going on with Senor Scratchy and we want answers. Agatha's watch is a mix of red, yellow, orange, green and purple. We know that purple is Agatha's colour, and we know that green is Rio's colour. The red and yellow mirror the red and yellow on Rio's shirt, and what colour do you get when you mix red and yellow together? You get orange. More than this, Agatha's socks also feature yellow stripes, and Agatha and Teen have the same placement of stripes on their shirt. These three characters are definitely connected somehow, but how is the question? So the colours on Agatha's watch are a visual representation of her connection to Rio, and if I'm going to be a little bit unhinged, I think the orange could maybe represent Agatha and Rio being integrated with one another in some way, or it could represent the fact that they made a child together, as that child would be a mixture of both of them. Agatha's friendship bracelets are also the colour of the lesbian pride flag, although I'm not sure if this is just a coincidence considering the other things that those colours could represent, but hey, Agatha radiates lesbian energy either way. And Agatha's other bracelet features red and blue, which interestingly suggests a connection to Wiccan, since those are his signature colours. Rio is the only other character in the trial wearing friendship bracelets, which symbolises the unique connection between her and Agatha, but Rio's friendship bracelets also feature blue and red. And like Agatha's bracelet, that suggests that she too has a connection to Wiccan. What this connection between the three of them is a mystery, because we know that Wiccan isn't their son, but it has been hinted at that Rio and Wiccan could be working together, since they were both in the same place at the same time in episode 1. Where Agatha fits into that working relationship is currently unclear. I mean, it could also be that Billy has a significant impact on their relationship down the road. At this point, the possibilities are running wild and free. Alongside this, Rio is wearing a Love Hearts bracelet, and since this trial is shaped around Agatha, this symbolises that she's Agatha's romantic interest, or the one who has Agatha's heart. I mean, Weebin knew this, but still, it's a cute touch. One strange thing I noticed was that the bracelets on Rio's right wrist disappeared in the wide shots over the Ouija board, and I can't work out whether this is an editing mistake, which seems unlikely, but it does happen, or if there's some deeper meaning to it. Is it related to the fact that Rio comes and goes from Agatha's life due to her job? Is there a glitch in the trial? Does that mean the trial is going to happen again, and in the other version, Rio isn't wearing the bracelets? The latter theory would tie in with Lilia saying, "I hated this the first time," and Teen saying that Lilia is being weird again. Now I'm kind of scared, because if there is another trial and Rio isn't wearing the Love Heart bracelets in that trial, does that mean that Agatha is going to fall out of love with her? Jack, don't do this to me. Rio's shirt also features a leaf design, which once again highlights her connection to nature, and through the trial's interior, her connection to Agatha as well. Teen's colour scheme is blue and red, and he is wearing a headband, both of which are signature to Wiccan, and these visual clues can also be connected back to a younger William Maximoff in WandaVision 2. The Ouija board contains several Easter eggs and clues about the characters, and also potential future characters as well. And here here is where things get crazy. William Fuld was an American businessman who is best known for his marketing and manufacture of Ouija boards from the 1890s through to the 1920s. He's also often credited with its invention, even though he didn't invent it, but also the name William connects to William Maximoff, who we know becomes reincarnated as Teen's character, Billy Kaplan, and the surname Fuld is shared by the actor Brian Fuld, who voiced the character of Reed Richards in the 1981 TV series Spider-Man, and Reed Richards is the character who hires Agatha to be Franklin Richards' nanny in the comics. Whether this hints at the Fantastic Four or Franklin Richards making an appearance in the show, or whether it's just a fun Easter egg remains to be seen. We can also see the board was created in Salem, Massachusetts, which is where Agatha grew up and where her coven tried to execute her. And we can also see the name Parker Brothers. The Parker Brothers were a famous toy and game manufacturer who, after William Fuld's death, acquired his company and all of its assets in 1966. But funnily enough, the Parker Brothers also share the same name as the defense robots from the Spider-Man/Deadpool comics, which I'm assuming is an inside Marvel joke. Agatha's trial revolves around convening with the dead, and the spirit who appears is that of her mother, Evanora Harkness. Since the trials seem to centre around the witch's personal traumas, this indicates that Agatha's mother is the root of hers. Evanora saying to Agatha, "You were born evil, I ought to have killed you the moment you left my body," is very revealing of how fractured and abusive their relationship has been from the start. And from both Agatha and Rio's reaction to this line, we can see that the hurt runs deep. Agatha being shunned and demonized by her own mother gives us some insight into the origins of her darker nature and the mask that she wears to hide all of that deep hurt. It also suggests that Agatha's need for power may be related to her wanting to protect herself from others, including her own mother. It's still unclear in this episode as to whether Agatha is truly unable to control her powers, or if she's just pretending that's the case as part of an act. But if it is true that she can't control her powers, that opens up a lot of new theories about her backstory, her character, and also potentially with what happened to her son Nicholas. At the end of the trial, we hear the voice of a young child say, "Mama, stop," which may suggest that Nicholas accidentally died as a result of Agatha not being able to control her powers, and would of course explain why she's so uncomfortable with emotional intimacy and people getting close to her. There is also the question of whether Agatha killed Alice on purpose too. In fairness, the other witches know what Agatha is capable of, but that just makes Alice's sacrifice all the more meaningful and devastating. It's insinuated that Alice jumped forward to protect Agatha because she realised Agatha never had the love and protection from Evanora that Alice had from her own mother. And in response, Alice wanted to provide that for Agatha because she knows what it's worth. This is why Lilia says the Knight of Wands when Alice puts herself forward, as it's the tarot card that symbolises passion, energy and impulsiveness. And this scene also explains Lilia's previous outburst towards Alice in episode 4, where she says, "Alice, don't." Alongside this, we see earlier in the episode how Alice leaps forward to defend Teen from one of the Salem 7. After Agatha says it's about selflessness team, we fly together or not at all. This is foreshadowing of not only what's going to happen later in the episode with Alice once again leaping forward out of selflessness, but it also likely connects into the wider narrative too, with selflessness being one of the lessons that Agatha needs to learn in order to get to the end. When it looks as though the Coven are going to abandon Agatha in the trial, Agatha shouts out, "I can be good," which is not only a throwback to WandaVision where we saw Agatha pleading with her mother not to kill her, but it connects the two situations to each other and highlights how Agatha is once again Jen being ostracized and punished by her coven, which is another thread in the tapestry of her trauma, which is what the trial is centered around. And it plays into her fractured relationships with other people. However, it's notable that this time around, not everyone abandons Agatha. Rio was never going to leave her there, and in fact, Alice risks everything to save her. There are people in her corner this time around, and that's the point. The road wants her to face up to her traumas and mend her disconnection and emotional discomfort with other people. Alongside this, earlier on in the episode, we hear how Agatha spared the Salem Seven, who are the children of the witches she killed at her Salem trial. And this indicates that she is not completely evil and ruthless, but at the same time, she's still a dangerous character who harbors dangerous powers, which has resulted in her taking away the lives of others. Agatha claims she isn't in control of this power, and if that's true, alongside her history of being demonized for it, it makes her a complicated, morally grey character. In any case, it's easy to see how the fear and mistrust surrounding her has damaged her relationships and left her isolated throughout her life. And it also explains why Rio/Death was able to form such a deep connection with her when no one else could. Rio has no reason to fear Agatha, and she also understands exactly how she feels. In fact, this entire episode is very revealing of just how much Rio knows and understands Agatha on an intimate level, in a way that nobody else does, and how, as a result, she is extra protective of her. This is why Rio refuses to leave Agatha with her mother. She knows the extent of the hurt and the pain that Evanora has caused Agatha, and it's also why Rio defends Agatha against Jen. She reminds Jen that Agatha only killed her coven as a result of Evanora trying to execute her, a detail Jen seems to gloss over. Interestingly, Jen snaps back at this with, "Are you really defending a noted serial killer, you creepy lurker?" And this line provides a further explanation as to why Death would have been acquainted with or attracted to Agatha in the first place, namely through all of the deaths Agatha caused, accidentally or not. And again, this creates a parallel between Agatha and Rio, where both of them are tied to darker powers, and this establishes a unique understanding between them. Jen's line also highlights how Agatha is largely misunderstood by most people, and Rio is one of the only people who knows or cares to know the deeper truth about her. Interestingly, when Agatha is back on the road and tries to use the power she absorbed from Alice, it disappears. And I wondered if that was because it wasn't enough for Agatha to get her powers back, or if it means that Alice isn't really dead and has therefore taken her power back. It's presumed that Rio as Death stayed behind in the trial to take Alice to the beyond, but is that really what Rio has been doing? I'm suspicious of everything and everyone in this show. Just like in previous episodes, episode 5 is full of multiple hints that Rio's true identity is Death. I think at this point, Weebin knew, but at the same time, I'm still suspicious there's more to her character. Anyway, when Agatha asks who's here with us tonight, the Ouija board spells out Death, and Rio has a good laugh. A fun inside joke there. Rio also states that she hates ghosts when Evanora appears, and perhaps that's just because she hates Agatha's mother, but ghosts are also a form of stray death, which I could see being annoying for her. And as discussed, Rio also stays behind in the trial with a dead Alice, whilst the rest of the coven leave, and presumably this is because she needs to ferry Alice's soul to the beyond. Interestingly, when Death is spelled out on the Ouija board, the next words are punish and Agatha, and I wondered if this was a clue that Rio is leading Agatha down a path so as to eventually get some kind of revenge on her as payback for whatever Agatha did to her. In episode 1, we can see snakes on Agatha's robe when she is fighting with Rio, and snakes are symbolic of betrayal. So betrayal could be the reason that Rio holds some hatred towards Agatha, and this could be a hint that Rio is playing the long game in order to get back at her. Rio also glares at Agatha with some intensity as Agatha is leaving facing the trial. And I think it's because this connects back to Agatha having ran away from Rio and all of their problems before, which touched a nerve. Oh, this runs deep, people. It runs deep. The most significant theme of all throughout this episode is the characters each revealing a truth about themselves in different ways. Teen revealing himself to be Wiccan and the reincarnated son of the Scarlet Witch is by far the biggest reveal in this episode. But this was brought out of him by the actions of the other witches, which revealed their true characters and in turn, even more about his character. Billy wants to prove to himself that he's not like the rest of the coven and he's not going to follow in the footsteps of the Scarlet Witch either. But the question is it already in his nature to do so? This opens up multiple new theories as to why he's on the road in the first place. Is he there to try and find Wanda, his brother? Does he want revenge? I think Billy's jumper is also very interesting because the line down the middle to me suggests he may have been opened up and then potentially sewn back up, which if so opens up even more theories about him. Are there two souls inside of him? What is going on? At this point, I think it's also safe to say that Billy was the one who put the sigil on himself. There were small clues here and there earlier on in the show that indicated this, such as the sigil being referred to as amateur work, and it likely disappeared because A, Agatha had finally worked out who he was after the events of the trial, and B, he finally had the power and the knowledge to protect himself, so it was no longer needed. Now we know Teen is Billy Kaplan, the reincarnated son of the Scarlet Witch. It opens up new theories about his backstory in the show. For example, in the credits, Joe Locke's name is on a slide that says near death in Westview. This hints that Billy was maybe somehow involved in the car wreck that was spoken about in episode 1, and that he met Rio when he himself was near death. Agatha does say the wreck was in Eastview, but everything else lines up, so I'm sure there's an explanation for that as well. But anyway, if it's true, this reinforces the theory that Billy and Rio shared a connection prior to the road and are working together, potentially with the aim of manipulating Agatha into doing something for their respective or shared motives. Agatha also states that the front two airbags were deployed in the car, meaning there were two people involved, and she also says that her gut tells her they're related. This is a huge clue that Billy's brother Tommy was with him in that car wreck. Where Tommy is now and how he fits into the wider story is another big question, or questions. Jen, in putting herself first and not shying away from more ruthless actions at the expense of others for her own gain, revealed herself to be almost a mirror image of Agatha this episode. We've seen Jen act in a selfish and deceitful manner before this episode. She's not a two-dimensional good or bad character, she has different sides to her, but her actions in episode 5 reveal just how far she is willing to go to get what she wants. Now, I've seen a lot of online theorizing that the characters were acting out of character and that there was something off about the trial too. I don't think that any of the characters were acting out of character at all. In fact, I think it's quite the opposite, and this episode revealed who their characters truly are. All of the witches are on the road for their own personal gain. They are there for themselves and they all know the deadly risks of being on the road too. So it makes sense that they would put themselves first in certain situations, or that they wouldn't be particularly unnerved by death. Also, from the very beginning, there have been several hints that they need to work together to survive. Teamwork makes the dream work, as the chief says. And that indicates that this is a lesson that is going to circle back around on all of them, and on Jen and Agatha in particular, since they have displayed the most selfish behaviours so far. As for the trial, I do agree that it felt slightly different from the other trials, but I don't think it was fake. Too many huge plot points happened for it to be some kind of dream or illusion. But it's worth noting that whilst the witches were flying, they were pulled upside down, which means the road could have flipped and may explain why the exit stairs in the trial were going up instead of down. And like I said earlier, there are certain things such as Rio's missing bracelets and Lilia's line about the first time which don't add up. I mean, anything is possible. If I'm putting my tinfoil hat on, I think there may be two sides to the road. episode, and Agatha, Lilia and Jen sinking into the swamp is going to result in them being spat out on the other side. However, I could be way off the mark and I'm open to all theories. I mean, if the trial was an illusion, that maybe explains why Agatha wasn't able to keep Alice's powers, but it will be interesting to see what next episode reveals about this one. Lilia revealed herself to be one of the more neutral characters this episode, and when you think about fate and tarot, it revolves around letting the cards fall where they may and acting accordingly afterwards. So it makes sense that this would apply to Lilia's character too. That said, I still think Lilia is much more of a mystery than the other witches at this point, and we may yet be surprised by what's to come from her. We've already discussed what the episode revealed about Alice, Agatha and Rio's characters, so I won't retread old ground because it's hallowed now. And finally, this episode ends with the toadstools on the road glowing what looks to me to be yellow, and the road is also bathed in a yellow light. This could indicate Lilia's trial. However, as Lilia represents the air element, I feel as though white would be a better fit for her instead of yellow. This leads me to suspect that yellow could mean that the next episode is potentially flashbacks or something else altogether. Interestingly, yellow is associated with happiness and sunshine, but it's also associated with deceit and cowardice. For example, calling someone yellow is calling them a coward. And from the promotional material from the show, we can see that Rio calls someone, most likely Agatha, a coward. So that combined with the look that Rio gave Agatha as she was leaving the trial this episode, which suggests that Agatha has a habit of bailing on emotionally uncomfortable situations, and Rio makes me think that Agatha is going to do something deceitful or cowardly next episode, which may cause a serious rift. Either way, it's going to be good. Overall, I loved episode 5. It was a crazy roller coaster of emotions. Baby, it had me on the edge of my seat, but I'll never fall completely off because I'm just too seated for this show. From looking at some of the promotional material for this show, I have a feeling that episode 6 is going to be one for the books. The spell books. Okay guys, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts and theories about episode 5 down in the comments section below. Don't forget to subscribe for instant disappointment, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!